I am Yessica Martinez. I am originally raised, I should say, in Miami, Florida. I was born in New York, Queens. Currently, I live in Pittsburgh right now. I have been for 4 years, but prior to that, I did live in London, Ohio, with you for about 8 months. And currently, I work out at 3 different gyms just because it depends what my training day is that day. I have I'm kind of a little spoiled in that sense that I can go to different gyms for exactly what I need. I know a lot of people don't have access to that. So I go to Powerhouse Gym in Pittsburgh, Union Fitness, which is located in the north side, and then I go to Legends, which is probably 20 minutes out from the city. So it kind of caters to bodybuilding. Union kind of caters to like a little bit of everything, and then Legends caters to specifically strongman. I was lucky enough to have mentors probably starting in high school that kind of like, I want to say like they were a little bit parenting me, but they were kind of like guiding me with certain things just because I wasn't really friends with the students in high school. I was friends with the staff, which is funny. And I'm still friends with them till this day, 15 years later. But I would say I was in team sports. I played basketball and volleyball growing up. I was offered a D3 scholarship in Orlando for basketball specifically, but I turned it down just because I was on my own in that point and I knew that involved a lot of money, and it was just, I thought the smart thing was just to turn it down. So my brother was dating the owner's goddaughter called Idolmaker Physique and Performance. I've mentioned them before in the past, but he got me into that, and it was a sort of a different type of training, obviously, that I've never seen before because weightlifting wasn't really prominent in Florida at all, or especially when you're that young in high school. And he introduced me to Randy Scotes, which is the owner, and put me through a hell of a workout. His background was mostly like West Side, so he followed more conjugate. He was really big into Louis. So we did GPP, which I didn't know what that was back then. I mean, we were doing chains, bands. I was like, this is a whole different realm that I've never seen before. And that kind of like reeled me in. And I was hooked ever since then. I think I was 18, so I was just getting out of high school, going into college. So I moved down near there on my own and went to college, started training. And my direction was, I want to be lean because I still had baby fat. I was like in that, I just want to aesthetically look good. Then I realized I was still more of that tomboyish because when you're in sports, that's just how it is. And I saw guys working out in the corner. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? They have like tendo units hooked up. They're doing like these things, they're yelling. And I was there with the physique girls, doing all these sets. And I liked it, but it didn't drive me the same way. So my trainer came up to me, which is Randy, and he's like, have you ever considered powerlifting? And I was like, I have no idea what that is. And I'm like, but I'm hooked, like, what do I need to do? So he put me through a program. So I had that guidance, and I was a little spoiled in that sense because I had people that were very knowledgeable. It wasn't I was going with like no idea. Competed on my first meet when I was 20 at the Lexington meet, which was probably not the most ideal situation because I went by myself, which is not ideal. And I think Chuck Vogelpool was actually lifting in that, which I didn't know who that was back then. And it was the longest meet drawn out. My flight was booked that night and I had to fly out after Deds. And it was just not an ideal, but I got a taste of it. And I was like, okay, now I know what the situation is. I can report back and kind of, regroup. So after that, I competed 2 more times and I ended up getting an elite total around 21. And I think the elite total was like 750 total, around that time. So that's when I kind of was on the radar, and my big thing was, there weren't a lot of women in powerlifting. I don't think it was like the camaraderie that it is today, because back then when I failed to lift, I saw girls like, oh good, she didn't get the lift, like get the hell out, this is a competition, which is still okay to have, but you still want that support, especially for like a first time lifter, you know what I mean? So I guess my direction, and for people to kind of see like, hey, this is actually something here. Like, we can help each other. This is just not a male dominant sport, you know, it's a few. So I was really big on the female in a male world, you know, kind of thing. But as I grew into that, I kind of phased that out. And it's like, well, it doesn't really matter who you are. It's a matter of earning respect and earning your place in the, I guess, in the industry, sort of thing. So I kind of rode that wave and said, like, I want to get as many people, encourage as many people. People feel confident no matter what you're doing, but you have a purpose and you have a drive. And I think that became like what I really wanted to focus on. Before I even knew about elitefts, before I knew about Dave, I met Laura Phelps in one of my first meets. I met Molly. It was funny because I ended up bombing that meet, even though I had the help, but Molly was also competing with Laura. And she saw me in a corner kind of frustrated. And I don't remember specifically, but I remember generally, Molly came up to me and said like, hey, you know, just keep your head up. This is what you need to do. And she's like about to go squat. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just who she is till this day as a person. And that's why we've remained like such close friends. So I was like, wow, that's crazy. Someone who's been in the sport for so long and still is that humble. You know what I mean? And that obviously stayed with me, you know, those kind of moments that you have with those people. And I took it, and I kind of approach people in the same way, or at least try to be aware of it. Then my brother was really big into lifting, but he never truly like competed like in a competitive way. He did it for leisure. And he applied, I guess you can apply for athletes, right? So I feel a couple of people applied because I was like, I'm this Joe Schmo person in Florida. Like, I haven't been lifting that long. I was getting more outreach for like photo shoots. I was in Muscle and Fitness. I was in Power Mag a couple times, and it was more of like, you know, the hot chick thing. Like, and I'm just like, okay, you know, and it's funny because I asked Dave, I was like, how the hell did I really get on this team? And he goes, honestly, it wasn't the magazines, if anything, that deterred you from actually joining the team. It was more of your personality, your approach, your mindset, your demeanor. And I was like, oh, okay. So when we realized, you know, you were actually serious about this and you were pushing yourself to get bigger totals, you were helping people, you're being more prominent in the community, that's when I knew you can be part of it. And I was like, is it because you needed more diversity? And I'm just like, but regardless, I'm just so, till this day, I still can't believe I'm around this many people with so much knowledge, so much experience. But I feel like I'm sort of catching up just because today it's been about over 10 years since I've been competing. So it's like, that's something, you know? I think the foundation here, like obviously the commonality of all of them is strength. Like it's pushing yourself in different ways. And for powerlifting, that came a little bit more natural. Even though I worked really hard to get better, it came a little bit more natural. Then maybe 3-4 years into training at Idolmaker, I met this guy who I really disliked in the beginning. Like, he was arrogant, he had this ego. His name is Mike. He now owns the Strongest Man gym called Battle Axe Gym in Florida. But before it became what it is today, you know, he really interested me in those like odd implements. And I was just like, what is that? That's like another like new thing, a new, like I would say, just something you can get, like start from the beginning and like, you know, progress from there. But he kind of put the bug in me and said, like, he's like, you can't do this. Like, you know, there's not a lot of women in this, obviously in a more motivational way than like me putting me down, which is his personality. So he was challenging me and I was like, okay, I'll go over and feel it out. And I ended up training there for 2 years after that and qualified for nationals. First nationals, I placed 11th out of 44 girls, which I thought it was pretty okay. I was actually surprised just because, you know, those girls were very impressive. And I've never been in that kind of environment, I would say. But they took the top 9 females in overall to the Arnold. So I was just a couple spots away. So I was like, okay, I can do something here. But I think at that point I was like, let me do both. And everybody was like, you can't do both. You can't be great at both. Even Dave was like, it's really, really hard. It's possible, but it's super hard. And I was like, okay, so maybe I'll commit to powerlifting. So I just went to powerlifting naturally. And then like everything else, 5-6 years in, you plateau and you figure things out. Like, what do I need to change? What can improve? What can carry over? Talking to different people, outside in those different sports. And basically they're like, try gear. There's not a lot of females in gear. Maybe it'll help you with the overload training and have some carryover. So I was like, okay, I'll try single-ply. Multi-ply is another different game between the two. So people donated single-ply. Dave gave me a couple stuff, played around with it. I was like, okay, this is another thing I can learn and get good at. So my goal was 1,000-pound total at 132. And first meet in, I got 1,019 on my first total. So I was very proud of that. I got a deadlift over 400, which was a goal. And then I wanted a 250 bench, but the bench was lagging just because of I don't want to say injuries, but just the wear and tear that strongman kind of gave me didn't really help with single-ply and the overload training. It kind of reversed the effect of what I wanted it to do. So I realized it didn't have any carryover and it was just what it was. It was an experience. So I went back to powerlifting and I was at that point just burned out. And now we're probably like 8-9 years fast forward. COVID happened and it probably was a blessing in disguise just because it forced me to take the year off completely. And I want to say I'm probably in the best shape physically, mentally. Mentally is waves, but physically I'm in the best shape I have been in a long, long time. So I think I needed that break, which a lot of people hate to admit because they want to just keep going. But it helped me in a lot of ways. So today I'm into strongman again. Powerlifting still in my mind, single-ply still on my mind. I want to be a versatile athlete. I'm an athlete at the end of the day. I'm not just a powerlifter. I want to be good at many things. And I think that's always been a thing for me with life and in training. So I started training after COVID. Things kind of died down. I was just doing more boot camp, styles, like whatever was accessible because gyms were closed. I relied on Julia, which is another mentor, best friend, sister. Like she's everything. And she kind of guided me. She's like, hey, do these things, and just focus on what you can do and focus on the controllables. And I did. And I think that prepared me for in the best way. And then I realized, okay, let me get back to something fun, which is strongman, because everything else is more, I want to say, how do you say it? I want to say it's more discipline. There we go. Versus like, yes, I want to max out and squat and, it's not really exciting. It's more discipline, like, commitment. And then strongman is the same, approach, but it's definitely way more fun in my opinion. So I reached out to Mike and he's been my coach forever. And he knows me 10 years of friendship. Like, someone in a mental, not just a physical aspect. So he knows when my mind is just overthinking, he knows what to say, which I'm very fortunate to have that. So we started training in January for his Miami's Baddest Man competition in April. And I placed first, which was great. And that was just the motivator I need. Okay, I'm first, I'm in this, I'm committed to nationals now. And I've been training for nationals ever since. Every competition is different. So when you're training for one competition, you have it, you're set, you're good, but then you have to completely switch approaches because they're gonna be different. So for nationals, it's gonna be max log, axle clean and press for time, 60 seconds, wheelbarrow for distance, wheelbarrow for deadlifts. Then last one is sandbag toss. So sandbags are in there, which is kind of nice. So I'll have that somewhat under my belt as far as like practicing with everything, but we'll see. I feel like monotone. Like I just feel like I just have no emotion. I hate to say that, but I just can't predict these things. So I can only do the best I can, and then not be emotionally wrapped into it too much. So I'm just neutral. I'm just going with it. I graduated from Florida International University in Miami, and my degree is in social work and minor in psychology. So that was my direction at 18, 19. I worked at an outpatient facility, so it was sort of easy. That was like what I was around. I started as a front desk clerk kind of thing, and then kind of worked my way up. That's what I thought I wanted to do. So I worked there for 4 years, maybe? I don't really remember, 4.5 years. So I thought that was the direction. I wanted to be a case manager. I wanted to help people in that sense. I mainly worked with child welfare, kids. So that was a little bit tough just to read the cases that were coming through, until I realized, wow, I really want something else. And that's when I told my brother, we were on a trip, and I said, I think I'm gonna leave Florida. I just want you to pick a date because I'll never leave. Pick a date and I'll leave. So he picked a date, and he said, okay, you're leaving December, whatever. And I was like, okay, that's when I'm leaving. So I put my notice and I said, I'm leaving on this date, just letting you know. And I left, and I came here. I texted you, I was like, hey, I heard you got a new house. You want a roommate? I had no plans. I didn't have job guaranteed, but I had been applying prior to that, because it was maybe like 4 months before I really decided to just leave. And nobody got back to me. I didn't have any money. I was on my own living down there, and I was just like, I just have to do this. Like, I'm going to figure it out, and it'll be okay, even though I wasn't okay. I was kind of freaking out. So I realized I didn't want to be a social worker. I didn't really know what I wanted. And I feel like I was being something because it brought money or paychecks or whatever. It wasn't good paychecks, but I was helping and I was doing what I was supposed to do until I came here. And then, I mean, a lot of nights alone in the room, you know, and figuring things out. I was in a relationship at that time. So that kind of, I don't want to say it was a good distraction, but you know, it was just nice to have something new to look forward to at that time. And I got a job here and trained with Dave, just because if you come to, you know, to Ohio, that's just what you do. And I was just focused on that. I wasn't necessarily happy, but it was a start to something new. So I ended up 8 months in moving to Pittsburgh, because that's where he was from. But visiting, I knew, I was like, this is the place I actually want to be. I did not like Ohio at all. And I was like, man, I really like this community. It's just like, it's knit tight. You kind of know everybody, but everybody wants to help everybody. You know what I mean? So I applied to a job down there that my friends told me about, which I didn't even know about Lululemon. And it's a very big brand. So my friends were like, try Lululemon. I think you'd be a really good fit just because you are in fitness. And I was like, okay. So I ended up getting the job, landing the job. It was a great job. It brought so many connections. It was good for, you know, networking and whatnot. And I basically got paid to go to studios and just create brand awareness for the company. So I worked for the sister company, which is Aviva. And it was brand new, and that's basically, it was like a boutique startup, and I had to make sure everybody knew about it. So it forced me to kind of go out there and meet the whole, you know, basically Pittsburgh. And that's when I realized, like, damn, this is home no matter what happens. I think I'm gonna stay. So I think that's when things started rolling for me and figuring out, wow, this is what I wanna do. So through that, Lululemon has ambassadors. So they don't necessarily have to be fitness, kind of like what this interview is about. They're different people, they're not just one thing. And I met photographers, I met instructors, I met healers, you know, whatever. It's very like, you know, hippie, I guess you would say. So I realized, okay, I kind of like photos. I've always taken photos since I was even very young on my phone, and they're just silly photos. And, you know, my mother, now that I don't really know my mother, but growing up, she was a wedding planner and I helped her out in her shop. She had her own shop. So she was very creative too. And I didn't know that aspect of myself just because I was avoiding that, area because I thought I was something else. And I was like, maybe I am very creative in that sense. So I started doing more visual merchandising for the store, which is like making things pretty. I liked, dressing people. So I had, clienteles where they would come in and I would dress them. And then I realized, wow, I really like fashion. I really like, making people feel good about themselves, just not physically, but externally. Because to me, that is important too. Because how you present yourself, I think to me, that's a business card, So, I started, dabbling into that and bought my first camera. Did not know what the hell I was doing, but that's just how it goes. And it kind of evolved. I'm still doing it till this day. I don't want to say professionally or as a business. It's still very much a hobby, but it's something I really enjoy. But it feels like work, but that's just, how it goes. So till this day, right now, I am a freelance photographer. My boyfriend has been producing and he's a videographer and photographer for the last 11 years. So his support has been amazing. And I basically support people with, organizations, clothing, fashion, anything like that. And right now, I'm kind of doing a lot of things. I'm dabbling, like I said, I like to do a lot of things. I like to be good at a lot of things. I'm working for a local florist. To me, that's good networking for weddings. And, that's kind of I don't care about mopping the floors or taking the trash out. If it's going to get me to that point where I'm going to meet someone that's going to take me to the next step, then I'll do whatever it needs to do, what needs to be done. So, and then I still work for Lululemon as well as a part-timer. I don't think I'll ever leave that company just because I learned so much about business. I've learned so much about community. I've learned so much about, personal responsibility. The training that they have us do on a monthly basis, it's a very, very good company. And I see myself being there for a long time. I'm not so much into it with, being full-time there just because that's not where my heart is right now. But if we did move somewhere else, I think I would be gung-ho with either managing one or being a visual merch lead there. So I'm not just one thing, I'm a lot of things. And I feel like I'm a certain way. And when I ask, for example, my boyfriend, do you think I'm super affectionate? Because I feel like I'm a very touchy person, and he's like, you could be a little more, you know what I mean? Or at work the other day, a coworker was leaving because she was going to law school. And I was like, oh my God, I wish you the best. And, I hugged her and she goes, wow, I've never thought I would have a hug from you ever. I was just like, wow, am I really that guarded? So it's just funny. I hope people remember me, that I listened to them and I was present with them, or I was there when they needed me, really there, not just hey, everything okay? Oh, okay, all right, bye. I hope I was nice. I hope I'm forgiving. I hope I'm a lot of things, but that really is, I think I take things day by day. I learn things day by day. I do my best day by day, and sometimes it's not my best, you know what I mean? And I kind of get emotional about it, but I don't look into the future anymore. It's weird. I don't have a 5-year plan. I have a 6-month plan because I just don't know what's gonna happen. And it's just hard for me to answer that, but I hope it's a positive impact is what I'm trying to say. And even though it seems that I'm guarded or people have assumptions, or I hope people ask me questions, you know what I mean? And it comes back to that dream. And they ask me questions and I give them the real me, you know what I mean? Until you have that conversation or that deep conversation with someone, you're never really gonna know, you know what I mean? But as far as a stranger, I smile, I say hi. I never not say hi. I make sure I say, have a great day, have a nice day. I say those things. But as far as the people that you really know are in your life and that you absolutely love, I hope I hope we communicate. I hope we respect one another, and I hope there's forgiveness along the way. I mean, I think that's the only thing you can really ask for. So